I think I'll get this underway. First of all, thanks everybody for joining me. My name is Ben Clendon. I'm the head of product at Sharesight. What we're going to do today is, I mean, most of you, I'm sort of taking it as you all know about Sharesight and you're obviously using it, but I will give a little bit of background into the use of Sharesight, and then I'll kind of launch straight into the things that you may want to know for tax time. We've got a few tools available, and I'm really just going to focus on the tools we have available and how they might help you with your New Zealand tax return. First off, I guess the first important thing to note about Sharesight is it's really is only as good as the sort of what you get out of it is really as good as the quality of the data that goes in. So that's the first thing we've always sort of talked about at tax time is just making sure your portfolio is up to date, is ready. This is just a demo portfolio I've created here for New Zealand. I've got a number of holdings, a mixture of offshore holdings, Apple and Microsoft, a couple of Australian holdings, and a couple of New Zealand holdings, just to kind of set the scene for the types of data, the types of portfolio, or the scenarios that you all might have. In terms of getting data into the system, most of you be familiar with, we have integrations with from Hatch into Sharesight, from Jarden Direct into Sharesight, from Sharesies. You can get your data in through ASP Securities via trade confirmations, although we don't have a direct integration with ASP Securities. But we've also been expanding our feature set sort of all over the place, really. So these days we've got a really large number of integrations, and not just those main ones I've talked about. We've got Craig's Partners. You sort of name it, we will have an integration with with your New Zealand broker. And if we don't, we'd certainly love to hear from you, because we really want to expand and ensure that the data coming into Sharesight is it works pretty seamlessly. For those of you who don't know, we've got a trade confirmation sort of support, trade confirmation tool. What this does is, if you're regular traders or regular, you're doing a fair number of transactions, you can configure your portfolio to receive trade confirmations. So the way you do this is you have a dedicated portfolio email address. You can have set up notifications every time you have a trade import into the system, but this dedicated email address can be added to your broking account as like a CC address, or you can set up some auto forwarding, and any trade confirmations moving forward is automatically sort of populated into your portfolio. We do this both by reading PDF attachments of trade confirmations, and also just basically reading the text of emails, just confirming your trades. So that's for ongoing trades. And again, you don't, if you're using Sharesies or using Hatch, you can actually configure the API. You can actually configure from within those products, within Hatch, within Sharesies and the like. You can actually, in Jarden Direct, you can actually configure your brokerage account to actually push trades down to Sharesight. So just a few little tools there. We've got loads of different options for getting your data nice and seamlessly into Sharesight. I also want to mention, for those who don't know, we are really pushing hard really at trying to expand our support. We've expanded across multiple markets now. We sort of support in the likes of 40 odd managed funds, or in the UK. You name it, we're really pushing out. Irish funds we've just introduced recently, and the reason for that is just trying to make that the ability to track all those sort of investments you have, both listed and managed funds, as seamless as possible. However, if we don't have support for one of your investments, let's say you've got investments in an unlisted company, we have this account level option in here, which is basically where you can create a custom investment, and you can populate prices. So you create the custom investment with your code, your name, the type of investment, and once you've done that, you can upload prices. We support fixed interest, ordinary shares. Fixed interest is an example would be, I don't know, say one of these ones where you you've got not only the fixed interest, we have the face value, the coupon rate, and a few other details here, and you can also bulk upload. So that's a way to configure these unlisted investments in Sharesight. And then once you've configured the investment itself, you can then basically go and find the investment, and you can go and populate the trades, or just send them through via the different means I've just talked about. So if I type in that fixed interest, these investments then appear here in as a trade that you can add. So again, just touching on those some of those options, so you can, the idea for us at Sharesight here is to basically expand out that feature set so you can import really, or track all of your investments. But let's get into the stuff you're here to listen to. So tax stuff. So one thing to do before you get underway is just check that your tax settings are correct. So we've got this New Zealand resident withholding tax rate. Now this is actually it's not entirely clear, but this tax rate, this resident withholding rate, is actually for your interest rate investments. So we can properly calculate the tax on those interest rate investments. Your standard dividends will be taxed at the default of 33%. So just making sure that's correct if you have any fixed interest. The next thing would be to check that you've got all your trades in. So if I come back, all your payouts, I should say, payouts and trades. So you just want to make sure you've got all your trades in the system, and if you do, having a quick look to see that you've confirmed all your payouts. These days we're really quite accurate, I think, with getting our auto-generated payouts into the system. But it is worthwhile just ensuring that they are actually correct. And in the last few months, we've actually updated our display of our payouts, so you can kind of see the converted amount as well as the original payout amount. So $50 to $7.65 for this Apple One payout, and if it's unconfirmed, we'll have a little lightning bolt, and you can bulk confirm across all of those payouts. So yeah, just making sure your portfolio got all the data in, it's all ready to go. And finally, there are other settings where if you're subject to DRPs, like if you've got you're subject to a DRP plan, that you've actually got the DRP settings correctly. Now, the DRP holding settings are they're down here. They'll only show here if a stock is subject to DRPs. So if you do want to know more, I won't go into too much detail, but you can turn on DRPs, and what that will do is it'll basically take a payout that's generated, and if the payout is subject to the DRP or reinvestment, it'll just create a reinvestment trade for you. And we have quite complex rules around ensuring that the reinvestment is accurately reinvested, and any sort of residual dividend that we can't allocate as shares is tracked for the next time that you've got a reinvestment. So there's a bit of a complex feature set there around reinvestment. So anyway, once you've got all the data into the system, you're comfortable that your portfolio is up to date, then we're kind of ready to go with the tech stuff. So we've got a few different tools. We've got our taxable income report. Obviously, this one just breaks the income into local and foreign for those who aren't subject to the FIF, the Foreign Investment Fund regime. And if you are, you've still got to obviously report your local income. So relatively, straightforward, I guess, in New Zealand compared to a lot of our customer base based in Australia, where the rules are a lot more complex. But we sum up all your dividends at tax time. Now there has been a change again for those who don't fall under the FIF regime, where this year the tax return is requiring you to break your foreign income down by country and income type. So as a result, we've actually added these two new columns to the foreign income section of the tax return, and also our download. So you can download this as a Google Sheet or Excel download, and we'll illustrate the country where those payouts are coming from and the income type. This This came about through one of the, this is sort of mentioned, I'm not going to do much detail here, but just this is mentioned in the income tax return guide, and where it talks about your overseas income, the fact that you need to kind of break it down by income type and jurisdiction. So we've done a little bit of work there to make sure that this is fit for purpose. And that's really the tax, that's really the taxable income report. Obviously, you want to run it for you want to run it for the last financial year. So let's just go and run that. It'll automatically default to the New Zealand financial year. So that's one of the tools we've got available. And again, you can extract the data through those different download means. The next thing is our FIF report. Now, the FIF report is a pretty complex beast. So we've basically got for the, for those of you who basically have more than 50,000 in peak balance, I guess is more than 50,000 in this demo portfolio, it is 72,000. Then this, this tax entity falls into the FIF regime. In terms of which stocks are included, this is basically, we've got some exclusions. There are some exclusions now. This is based on the kind of the legislation, although there is the potential other additional potential exemptions to the FIF regime that I'll briefly touch on, but obviously it's worth speaking to your accountant about. But based on the kind of the legislation as it kind of stands today, we've got some exemptions around Australian ordinary shares. So I've got Apple and Microsoft are included, but ANZ, ASX isn't included in the FIF regime because Australian listed entities by companies aren't included in the regime, and there's some other exemptions. There are also exemptions that have been announced for those in certain countries in addition, which is worth just touching base with your accountant about. There are a number of countries, about 40 odd, where we have double taxation agreements. So even if they are included sort of here in this report, it might be that you don't actually need to include them in your final return, but it's worth talking some of that stuff through with your accountant. But I'm going to kick into touch a bit more about what the different calculation models are. So so there are sort of 5 different ways of calculating your FIF income, but for the most part, there's 2 methods that are available for your standard individual family trust. You've got the fair dividend rate. Now, the fair dividend rate is basically saying, okay, you've invested offshore. Your offshore investments aren't subject to like an imputation regime, but and New Zealand, collects tax through essentially an imputation regime through the fact that there's a fairly strong, fairly strong sort of dividend income from returns in New Zealand. So what they basically do, the fair dividend rates basically says, okay, let's say what's your overseas investment, what's your opening value, and what's 5% of that, which is more or less an equivalent to 5% of the opening value would be a kind of an equivalent of what you might get if the investment was in New Zealand. So anyway, so that's the fair dividend rate method for calculating your FIF income. You generally would get to choose the lower of the 2 income methods. So you've got the FIF method, the fair dividend rate method, and then you've also got the comparative rate value method. Comparative value method is quite different. It's basically it takes the closing balance of your investment, which they call kind of like an attributing interest. So one of the attributing interests is Apple, and the other one is Microsoft. It takes the closing market value of all those combined, adds the sales and the dividends, and then it deducts the opening value to find out what your income is for the year. And then basically what you do is you compare the 2, and then you can take the lowest one. So that's generally how the regime works. In addition, we've got some quite complex sort of rules that we've captured around the claimable overseas tax that you can claim back basically on those 2 different methods. I won't go into too much detail here, but there is a bit of a formula, and we've kind of built a tool that essentially captures what the overseas tax, claimable tax you can, what you can claim back. It doesn't go to all the way through the process, because to ultimately to get basically to go know exactly what you can claim back, you do actually need to know what your total taxable income is, and if your overseas tax paid, if the foreign net income total exceeds your total your taxable income, then the amount you can claim per holding may actually need to be reduced further. So there's some additional rules. We explain it in this tooltip here, and each of these values and what they are, we have a little tooltip to explain what that sort of section is all about. So that's the sort of the, at a very, very high level, what this FIF regime is about. There's a really comprehensive download that you can basically pull all of that data out of our system, and download it to manipulate or to remove income that should not be included. So yeah, that's the second second tooling. And for those of you who would classify yourselves as essentially traders, then we actually have, and I've just got a really simplistic look here, but we also have a trader's tax. So this is where the rules, it's a bit sort of a little bit sort of grey, I guess. But if you're a buy and hold investor and you're making a purchases to sort of with the intention of sort of retaining them for, I guess, in the long term, you're not subject to these sort of traders tax rules. But if you do sort of are basically deemed a trader, then you do need to declare your capital gains on your trades. So, and we handle different sale allocation models: first in, first out, last in, first out, minimize, maximize gains, etc. And you can change the model here. I won't go into much more detail than that. Maximize gain and minimize gain, but we do handle a we do have a capital gains report for those of you who are classed as traders. So those are kind of, I guess, what I'd say is the three key sort of feature sets of ours for New Zealand tax time. But and obviously that you've got the downloadability. But beyond that, many of you will have accountants. You can also share access to Sharesight. You can basically jump into the portfolio settings, go to portfolio sharing, and you can actually share access with your accountant at whatever level you want, or vice versa. If you're on here listening to this as an accountant, you can share with your customer, and that's the way to and then your accountant can run those reports and extract the data they need in preparation for submission of your tax return. And that's in a nutshell, really, all the kind of tax related stuff. Obviously, many of you would use Sharesight, for the performance feature set that we have. But we have all this data at hand for our performance reasons, for running our diversity reports and contribution analysis. It's made a lot of sense for us to build out our sort of tax reporting feature set for New Zealand and Australia and other countries as well, because we have so much aggregated data that really can, we hope, be of use to you at tax time. So that kind of, I guess, in a nutshell, is some of the feature sets, and really from here, I guess it was, I can take the opportunity to answer any questions people have, or if I don't know the answer, we can certainly jot down your questions and follow up. So I'll stop sharing, and my colleague Prashant, who's on the call, he may share a few of the questions some of you have.
Thanks for that presentation, Ben. That was really good. So just some of the questions that people asked during the registration process. One was, let me go through them. Is there a reference for how to enter transactions correctly so it matches the contract notes?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the first thing to do, I think the first thing to do there is, is to reach out to our support at sharesight.com if you have any questions about how to accurately map the trade confirmation and get that data into Sharesight accurately. We've got a really, really in-depth set of knowledge around that, because we support hundreds of different brokers and their trade confirmations. So we do have some expertise in that area, so we can certainly help. And normally I'd be surprised if we don't support your trade confirmation. So rather than trying to map it yourself, I would encourage you to look to see if we have support for your trade for your broker, and then you could set up that trade confirmation, that tooling in Sharesight, where you can start to send off your trades directly to the dedicated portfolio address in Sharesight for you, and we will basically automatically map that trade confirmation. So that really really shouldn't be a problem for you moving forward. And please just send a message to support@sharesight.com, and our team can help you with that.
Thanks, Ben. There's a live question here. Can we get more detailed portfolio data? That's the question.
More detailed portfolio data. Okay. Yeah, without knowing exactly what portfolio data, it's a little bit hard to answer that one. But we have a number of different reports in terms of getting portfolio data. So we've got, for example, a sold shares report, a historical cost report. We've got an all trades report, which basically gives you can extract all of your data out of the system if you need to. Um, we are busy building and expanding Sharesight to take us beyond our core performance and tax into other insights. So you'll see a lot more from us in the coming months in that space. We automatically support the payouts, dividends, distributions, payouts, what have you, from a really large and growing set of countries, and at last count it's in order of 40 or 50. So we do have a large data set. We're also looking at supporting other data points, which I won't go into too much detail here to not give away some of the work we're doing, but you'll see some of that stuff from us in terms of really getting insight into your investment portfolio, the ability to track more investments that you currently can't track. We're really trying to lean into our custom investments and ensure that that's really fit for purpose, and in kind of any scenario that you can kind of think about. So yeah, we're doing a whole lot in that space, and you should be able to extract through any of our reports, that any of the data you kind of put in, you should be able to extract back out again through one of our reporting tools.
Thanks, Ben. There's another question that's just come in live, which is, what's the minimum time frame for a buy and hold investor?
Yeah, so I'll get myself in trouble here if I if I try and answer that directly. So it, it seems very really sort of nuanced, and I think it's not about the length of, well, my sort of understanding, it's not about so much about the length of time, it's about your intent. What is your intent about that, around that purchase? It really, that's really is a bit of a question for perhaps your accountant, because we've got to be careful not to offer tax advice and try and answer the question of, are you a trader or are you not? But certainly my understanding is that the vast majority of New Zealand investors sort of don't fall into that kind of trader kind of tax sort of type. But it's all about the intention of what you're wanting to do with it. Are you in purchasing because you're looking to invest in shares, and you're wanting to hold those shares? If you turn around and have to sell them for some reason down the track, then that probably doesn't necessarily mean you're classified as a trader. But I won't say more than that. So I don't want to get myself in trouble.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. There's another one from the registration question, which is US dividend non-resident withholding tax, USD/resident withholding tax. Suppose they're asking, how do we make sure the settings are right for that?
Yeah, no, great question. I'll share my screen again, and let's deep dive into a little bit there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let's go into one of our Apple stocks. So I've already got, if I just click on any one of these dividends for Apple, I've got a non-resident withholding tax set here. So we've got an automatic population of non-resident withholding tax. If I come down to the holding setting, I've got this default withholding tax rate of 15%. Now, we've got a bunch of defaults across different jurisdictions, like what's the French to New Zealand foreign withholding tax, what's the Australian to New Zealand, a whole bunch of different defaults, but you can override those defaults. And I'm not going to remember if I put that in like that or not. So if you just punch in the value, you'll see that I've gone and done a 0.3%. You can basically update per portfolio, let's say, I don't know, 50% per portfolio, you can go and update that foreign withholding tax. So now out of $36, I'm seeing, tax withheld of 18, which is obviously, not a real scenario, but you can customize that for each holding you have. And we try and get the default right. But if we haven't got the default right, you can update it. And you could always let us know too via support@sharesight.com if we haven't got the default tax rate correct. And we can look to do that at a global level so that, everybody's Apple holdings are defaulted to the correct tax rate.
Thanks, Ben. Another couple of questions from one of the attendees. Can one be an investor in certain assets and a trader at the same time?
I'm not aware that you can, but I don't know more than that. So that may need to go to your accountant, but it's not something I'm aware of.
And the next question is also from that's more of an opinion, I think, which we may not be able to answer, but I'll ask the question anyway. What is an exceptional portfolio return for the current financial year? What is an average return currently in percentage terms?
Well, that's what a neat question. So so from like from what I know, like there's been a lot of loss in the last financial year. As a general a general sense. So I think for example, there's probably not a lot of foreign income being declared this year because people just generally think the markets have been obviously really down, and they've crept up over the last few months. I know certainly in the tech sector. Do I have a value? I don't have a value sort of right here to share, but it's certainly it hasn't been a super awesome year for your average investor compared to other years. We are looking to explore ways to provide some sort of insights in a general sense, but I won't go too much into what some of those future-looking things that we're planning to do are.
Thanks, Ben. I might just go back to one of the registered questions. Somebody has asked a question about tax and zero. I suppose they want to know how this taxable information or tax reports are seen in the zero connection.
Yeah, I mean, Zero, we share data with Zero at a sort of a general ledger level. So we're passing through cost base and we're passing through income and what have you. But it's more of a passing it through for bookkeeping and for understanding your sort of portfolio, your wealth inside as part of your broader financial picture. We we don't pass specifically details sort of the individual shareholdings, like it's aggregated together. So in terms of tax time, our focus is normally on the tools and Sharesight, and completing tax time using some of the tools in Sharesight, and not so much about what Zero can provide there. And I wouldn't say we typically send the amount of information required to Zero for you to use sort of Zero for that sort of that tax aspect. I would tend to stick with the tools inside Sharesight. For example, the country and the our taxable income report, where we've got the country and the income type breakdown. That's sort of stuff that we have here in Sharesight, and we don't typically, we don't send that sort of data to Zero.
Thanks, Ben. I think that's all the questions. There's another opinion question, which I don't think we can answer. Somebody's asked, what is the IRD stance on Bitcoin? Not sure.
Yeah, I mean that's something we could probably explore. I see there are occasional announcements. I'm not sure where at the top of my head what their stance exactly is at the moment on Bitcoin. So I can't directly answer that. But there's probably no reason we can't capture some of the questions we haven't answered, Prashant, and see if we can we can follow up and answer those, or more likely point people to an IRD bulletin or something rather than us sort of try and word IRD stance directly, because we have to, Sharesight is we're a tool that allows you to track your performance and track your investment portfolio and provide this tooling to allow you to complete these returns. But we're not tax advisors, and we have to be really careful to not offer tax advice, but we offer the tools to help you in your management of your investment portfolio. But we can certainly do what we can within our remit to guide and point you in the right directions.
Thanks, Ben. I think that concludes all the questions. Oops, I think there's just one more. Oh, thank you. There's just a general comment saying great presentation. Thank you. Yeah, that concludes all the questions. And thanks for your time, Ben. And thanks for all of those who attended the webinar. We are recording this, so we will repurpose this and send it out as a YouTube link as well. So watch out for that over the next few days.
Cool
Yeah,
and great.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening.